Hi, hello, welcome back. Or maybe just welcome. Not gonna lie, July was a bit of a shit show for me with the heat wave. And I've been spending more time in a vegetative state than actually playing video games. But I still managed to knock out some stuff. This is also your PSA to drink water, you mitten. Because you're probably not doing enough of that. And please, wear sunscreen when you go outside. Anyway, I know this is a backlog video, but my main focus isn't to play as many video games as humanly possible, but to enjoy myself by playing video games. And I got a few guidelines that I follow to make the whole process easier. First, I use howlongtobeat.com to sort all my Steam games into folders with expected time to complete. You can use other methods, but I don't like the idea of having to update an external list constantly. Then I pick up 5 games from different genres and durations. Usually I only play one long game at a time, and if I need a break, I'll play something shorter in between. I also try not to play more than 2 games at a time. Previously, I made a list of 10 games, but then I decided to reduce it since it was easier for me to not get distracted by a bigger list. If I'm not enjoying myself and don't feel like playing the game for a week or 2, I either pause the game or drop it completely. I also don't add new games to the list unless I replace a game already there. Lastly, I don't make another list unless I have only 1 game left that I'm currently playing. And with that, here's all the games I played in July 2026.
Wake up, sleeper.
Of course, I was going to kick off the month with Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector. I think I pronounced that right. The first game was such a banger, so I was pretty curious to see how the sequel would hold up, since how could you possibly top Citizen Sleeper 1? I mean, come on. But man, am I glad to report that I think I like the sequel even more than the first game. Which is absolutely crazy, because I love the first game. Like, a lot. I'm sure watching someone else playing this would look pretty boring, but playing it yourself? It's so much fun. It's so engaging, and I didn't ever want to stop. We're back to struggling to survive in space, and this time we're visiting the Belt, which is something that was talked about in the first game, and rather than being stuck on a single space station, you are constantly moving around to different places, which means you also get to have companions that travel with you, and I really like having companions. Oh, fuck. Damn it, Judy! Your main relationships being the crew that you travel with this time around brings so much more to the game, because it feels like you have a bunch of friends that just came along for the ride. You pick who you want to bring with you on contracts, and they all have different stuff to say. It just adds a lot of flavor. I also messed up several times, so I'm looking forward to replaying the game and seeing how things change. We're also back to having an existential crisis with our identity as a sleeper, as being a copy of an artificial mind stuffed inside a mechanical body cannot be good for your mental health. The writing is just as good this time around, and the way it describes your existence made me so uncomfortable. For some reason, I seem to really enjoy suffering through media, and Citizen Sleeper once again hits that nerve. Oh, and Lane? He really got to me. You just know that guy watches snuff films for fun, because he's a fucking psychopath. The one thing that was kind of a gripe in the first game, if you could even call it that, is that in the later stages, or if you were efficient with your resources from the get-go, the game loses almost all sense of urgency, which was one of the things that made me really invested in the first place. The sequel pretty much fixes that, since you got limited supplies when you travel to contracts, and even if you're stocked up with everything you could possibly need, you're still kind of fucked. No, fuck! And I did in fact fail multiple times. Oh, fuck! And it was awesome. There's also a bunch of new mechanics, and it made the game feel really fresh while maintaining its identity. You could take these risks, but there were also more consequences, since your dice could break this time around, and you would need resources to fix them. And fixing dice caused its own set of problems. On top of all that, there was more time restrictions, and things you had to keep track of, which added even more of a challenge, which I think made it even more fun, to be honest. You know, it's a damn good game when you see the ending approach and you just don't want it to. I sure hope they decide to add some DLC or something, like they did in the first game, so that I can keep putting even more hours into Citizen Sleeper, because I've been having such a great time with this series. 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, and you stay in there, you little shit. I had no idea what to expect when I was booting up this game, but when I saw the banger opening, I knew I was in for a good time with Kraken Academy. The game started pretty strong with a fist fight, a car catching on fire, and a broccoli telling me I had to get to class before I was late. You eventually learn that you have to save the school from the apocalypse or something, and then you're stuck in this time loop trying to make it happen. You could also just sit back and watch the world burn. That's also an option. Everything is so wacky and absurd that it feels like an anime in pixel format, and the references are just leaking out at every turn. Objection!
Objection!
Oh my god! He made me laugh, like, all the time. I've experienced comedy in video games before, but I've never played a game that is just comedy. It's hilariously stupid and didn't overstay its welcome with the 4.5-hour runtime, so I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't really have much else to say about it, except that you shouldn't worry too much about smashing all of the trash cans. You have all the time in the world after all. Okay, so I just finished my previous video and I was running on like 2 hours of sleep, but I wanted to play something. It had to be short and low effort because I just couldn't at the time. So I booted up GRIS. Hold up.
GRIS.
That's not it. So I booted up GRIS. I picked it up in the recent summer sale, and over the years I heard some really good things, but I knew like nothing about it. At the beginning I thought it was just gonna be a walking simulator with this strange alien creature, because what are those proportions? But man, my expectations were blown away. I mean, just look at this shit. I don't even want to show more of the game, because I want you guys to experience this firsthand, because oh my god, it's so amazing. There's no dialogue, but the game literally had me crying multiple times from the spectacle alone. It's like walking through a watercolor painting, and then out of nowhere the music will just hit you straight in the face. Like, how do you even make something like this? It's just so stunning, and I was constantly rendered speechless, which is a feat in itself because I talk a lot. Why do you think I made this channel? And just look at this stuff. How cute is that? And what I thought was going to be a walking simulator turned out to be this really fun puzzle platformer. It's so intuitive. I felt like I was constantly lost, but somehow I was always on the right track. And the puzzles felt so clever. At least to me, and maybe that just means I need to play more puzzle games, but with my current level of experience, it was just so good. It was also kind of funny how I had like no idea what the hell was going on, but the game was still so gripping and entertaining. It's like watching a musical where you don't understand the language, but you're still really invested in whatever's going on. Apparently GRIS is about the stages of grief, which went way over my head. I was also pleasantly surprised about getting through the 3-hour runtime of this game in one sitting. Wait, does it count as one sitting if you get up like 10 times? Anyway, it's nice to know that my gaming endurance has improved, and that Citizen Sleeper wasn't an outlier in how long I'm able to play stuff. But yeah, another easy 5 out of 5 stars. And you can fight me on that. I wanted to replay it almost immediately when I was done, but I'll save that experience for later. I'm also adding it to my top 5 games, which is starting to get a bit crowded. And that's kind of wild because I've only been gaming for like a short while, and there's still like 5 months left in the year. Wait, we're more than halfway through 2026? So the first thing I noticed when starting up Trine was the 2000 vibes. Whoa, it looks so old. Which included a British narrator,
Once upon a time, in a land far, far away,
lighting with excessive bloom, and the launcher that looked like you just reinstalled Windows XP. It reminded me of some of my favorite games at the time, and it was very nostalgic to say the least. Even down to the wonkiness, cause Trine is not just a puzzle platformer, but a physics-based puzzle platformer. And it will not let you forget that. Ever. I'm pretty sure all of the puzzles have multiple ways to clear them, but I never really tested it out since Trine, while entertaining, whoa, it wasn't that entertaining. It wasn't the type of game that could keep me playing for more than an hour at a time. At least until I got to the halfway point, but that was also where some of the annoyances popped up. The vaulting in this game sucks ass. And I can trust it about as much as I can trust myself to do the damn laundry. Even more so because there's these tiny ass ledges just littered throughout, and you're just as likely to vault onto them as you are to just vault straight through them. It's pretty safe to say that the last 2 hours of the game, while still pretty fun, became kind of frustrating at times. The tutorial prompt would also block like half the screen, and sometimes I would get this bug where I couldn't navigate the menu, and the only way to fix it was to reopen the game. And at that point, I almost didn't even want to play anymore. Then there was also the time where the knight decided that he was now a pacifist and would no longer wield a weapon. The bosses was also pretty uninspiring, but that didn't stop them from scaring the shit out of me. At least you can't walk more than like 5 feet without there being a checkpoint, so even if you were to kill all of your characters, you'd still lose like no progress. I remember back in my day where you'd be like 1 to 2 hours into a level, and dying meant doing that shit all over again. The story is obviously just window dressing to the gameplay, and it's pretty goofy throughout the whole thing.
they could see darkness. There now stood a dark tower, an evil tower.
But I also think that was just on par for the time. Despite all of my complaints, I actually had a pretty decent time with this game. I also enjoyed using the wizard to drop boxes onto enemies and shoot them down like a spawn camping sniper using the thief. In the 5 hours of playtime, it certainly had its moments and I don't regret finishing it, so it's a 3 out of 5 stars, at least for me. The closest I've ever come to playing a Devil May Cry game is when I watched a playthrough of the remake that everyone hated. And I've had Devil May Cry 5 sitting in my library since it came out like 7 years ago. I got it for free with my graphics cards, and oh my god, how did I never play it until now? Has this series always been this wacky and fun? Why haven't I heard about this before? I actually started it back in June, but due to issues with my controller, I had to put it down for a while. I did finally pick it back up though, and it was kind of beating the shit out of me. I never played a hack and slash game like this before, and I've not even touched anything that's remotely close to action since I started gaming again. So it was a bit of a learning curve just dealing with the button inputs. And my god, there's just so much of it. I was overwhelmed with just Nero and his moveset, and whenever I started getting used to it, I had unlocked V, and whenever I got used to V, I unlocked Dante. I know I could technically redo the mission or practice in the void, but I already spent like 20% of the playtime in the menu looking at skill lists, and I wanted to see where the story went. But for real though, what's up with Dante's toolkit? Are you seriously supposed to toggle between 4 different melee weapons, 4 different rage weapons, and 4 different modes mid-combat? Does anyone actually do that? I'm also not really a fan of the whole getting new moves at the beginning of a boss fight. Like, I already have enough to deal with. My steak is all buttery and my lobster is too juicy and all of that. When it comes to the plot though, I don't know how it manages to juggle all that insanity and still somehow make me emotionally invested. Are you seriously going to show Dante doing a Michael Jackson impression and then get me to care about a character and their backstory? It's ridiculous, I'm telling you. Not as ridiculous as Nico's driving skills. I'm half convinced she's not even human at this point. She's like if the gunsmith from Bayonetta decided he wanted to start selling shit out of his car. And I wasn't too big a fan of her name. Nico and Nero, it kinda got me confused since all of my brain RAM was taken up trying to figure out how the combat worked. Why couldn't she be named Wanda or something? She sounds like a Wanda, doesn't she? The only actual gripe I have about this game is that I didn't want to stop playing. But unfortunately, after around an hour or so, like clockwork, I'd get a headache and I had to stop soon after. Which sucked so bad, because this really feels like the type of game that gets better after you had some time to warm up. I'm also annoyed about the ending setting up perfectly for a sequel, yet it's been 7 years since this game came out. Like, come on, Capcom, what the fuck? Do you guys not like money? Due to certain shenanigans... No! Oh, that was the wrong button! I ended up spending like 19 hours on clearing this game, but man, what a ride it was. I totally want to play more of it at some point in the future, and it's a 5 out of 5 stars without question. Alright, so any game coming up after Devil May Cry is gonna have a bad time. I mean, how do you go from this to this? Turns out you can do it quite easily, because Wintermoor Tactics Club is actually a pretty good time. At least if you're into D&D or some other tabletop RPG, which I am. I wish I played it during the winter season though, due to obvious reasons. I mean, it's literally in the name. Anyway, Wintermoor Tactics Club is a love letter, or at least fan mail, to Dungeons & Dragons, and if you've been living under a tree for the last 50 years, I'll have you know that D&D is a tabletop role-playing game where you play pretend and ignore your responsibilities for a few hours. Like that trash you were supposed to take out, or those overdue bills you were supposed to pay, or the fact that you're losing phone service due to those said overdue bills. Right, so the reason I picked up this game was because the whole thing is basically a D&D reference, and those references are everywhere, and it made me smile like all the time. To be completely honest, I wasn't too stoked about it when I first started, since I had just come off the high that is Devil May Cry 5. And it began a bit slow, but I warmed up to the group of friends playing D&D pretty quickly. I mean the group of friends playing C&C pretty quickly. Even Jacob, who's that guy that never knows what the hell is going on in any given session. The game felt kind of small, but in a good way. There's just a few locations to wander around in, and you move between them pretty fast. It made me appreciate the lack of unnecessary fluff, and other than the first couple of hours, it didn't really feel like it was dragging on at any one point. Even the side quests were really quick and easy to do, and in the grand scheme of things, it actually made sense for the main story to complete them. I'd say it even adds to it, and it's worth doing just for the upgrades they give you. The combat itself is a pretty standard turn-based tactics game. I'm assuming at least, because I don't think I've played any of those. It's kind of simplistic, but it does its job, and you can choose between multiple units with different builds, and that adds spice to everything. I was even struggling with one of the final battles. It took me multiple attempts, and new things just kept happening every round. By the end, I barely made it by the skin of my teeth, and it was a really good time. As for the story itself, it wasn't anything special, but it was enjoyable with some twists and turns, and I was curious to see where it would all lead. It was also quite goofy at times, and didn't take itself too seriously, which worked out really well in its favor. And I'm always a fan of the trope where normal people get dragged into weird shit that is just way out of their pay grade. There was also some pretty fun characters that grew on me, specifically Baphomet. She started out as such an asshole, and to be fair, she's still an asshole, but I warmed up to her with the whole "you shouldn't give a shit about other people's opinion" deal. And I also liked how into character she would get around the table. There's also references like all over the place. You can't convince me that this girl wasn't inspired by a certain character. And if I had a nickel for every student council president who had a sword and did this pose, I'd have 2 nickels. It was also just funny to see how the group would play CNC and how it kept referencing tropes in real-life tabletop RPGs. Except that there's no way there's a game master out there that reads a module for the first time alongside the players. The game took me around 9 hours to finish, and it was a nice and cozy game that left me feeling as though I had a pretty good time. I'd say it's a solid 4 out of 5 stars on this one. And that's all the games I played in July 2026. Okay, so maybe there was one more game, and if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. Anyway, I already complained about how the weather ruined like half of July for me, but I'm still glad to have been able to enjoy so many good games this month. Me wanting to keep making these videos snowballed into me wanting to play even more, and it's basically turning into this positive feedback loop. It turns out I really enjoy editing, and I'm pretty sure I've gotten way more efficient, so perhaps it is sustainable after all for me to keep making these. And for the first time in a while, I can genuinely say I'm actually looking forward to what will happen next month. I'm also really looking forward to playing more video games. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, because there's probably going to be one. Man, I finished this video really fast compared to last time, and I sure have a lot of Devil May Cry footage.